Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has officially announced he's running for president in 2016. The independent, self-described Democratic Socialist senator says he will seek the Democratic nomination, joining Hillary Clinton in the race for the party's vote. Sanders says his democratic socialism has appealed to Democrats, Republicans, and independents for many years in Vermont, and he thinks his message can resonate across the country. He's vowing to fight income inequality.
We are waiting to hear from our decision desk in the control room to see if we have news, and here is the first news of the evening. We are projecting that when all the votes are counted, Bernie Sanders will, as expected, win the New Hampshire primary over Hillary Clinton. Right now, 51-40. You see the raw vote only amounts to 8%, but these numbers will start piling up as we go on. No surprise, Vermont. Bernie Sanders has carried his home state as one of two senators from that state. Bernie Sanders, Vermont, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Minnesota just awarded.
We're back, and we got news now. The Democratic Party of Kansas has declared that fellow, Senator Bernie Sanders, the winner of the Kansas Democratic caucuses.
Well, we're ready to make a projection right now based on the information just provided by the Democratic chairman in Nebraska. Watch this. And CNN will is projecting right now that Bernie Sanders will win the state of Nebraska, the Democratic presidential caucuses in Nebraska. This is his second win of the night. Earlier, we projected he's the winner in Kansas, the Democratic presidential caucuses in Kansas. Right there, Bernie Sanders picks up win number 2 tonight. According to the official numbers that were released by the Democratic Party, you can see Bernie Sanders with 54.8%, Hillary Clinton 45.2%. But based on that information, based on where the outstanding vote is, we have made the projection. Bernie Sanders picks up win number 2 for him tonight in the state of Nebraska. Earlier, he won Kansas.
And as the candidates were on stage, the results came in from the Democratic caucuses in Maine. Bernie Sanders won that contest. That marks his 8th victory in the nomination process.
Democrats abroad. Look, you're everywhere and also nowhere. But nearly 35,000 Americans cast votes in the Democrats abroad primary. 35,000 Americans living overseas in more than 170 countries cast votes in this primary. And it turns out those Democrats living abroad really like Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, the projected winner of the Democrats abroad primary by a margin of 69-31. That's huge, more than lapping Secretary Clinton in this particular field. That's a big enough lead that of the 13 delegates apportioned to this contest, Senator Sanders will get 9 of the 13 delegates. Secretary Clinton will get the remaining 4.
Bernie Sanders will, in fact, beat Hillary Clinton in Michigan's Democratic presidential primary. This is a major upset. How major? Now, consider that in all 15 pre-election polls conducted in Michigan this year, Clinton led Sanders by double digits. This is the 9th and largest state that Sanders has won so far in the Democratic presidential campaign. I think, Joe, that falls right into the narrative you were discussing, which clearly was that, in fact, Bernie Sanders' message about trade and those issues resonated for both Trump and Bernie Sanders in Michigan.
And just at the end of what Chris had to say, I was informed we have 2 new characterizations, including a winner projection, that in Utah, Bernie Sanders will come out on top.
It is 11:30 p.m. in Idaho right now, and NBC News for the first time tonight can name a projected winner. You see it right there. Bernie Sanders, the projected winner of the Idaho Democratic Caucus.
America's Choice 2016, and among Democrats, voters in the state of Alaska, the state of Washington, and Hawaii have all weighed in on Saturday. We're still awaiting results from Hawaii, but the caucus tallies from the other 2 states gave Bernie Sanders big reason to smile today. With 101 delegates at stake in Washington state, Sanders snagged 72% of the votes, and in Alaska, he won more than 80%. But Hillary Clinton is still far ahead of Sanders in the national delegate count. Right now, she holds more than 70% of the delegate votes that she needs to win the Democratic nomination. Still, Bernie Sanders has reason to smile. He is optimistic. He told supporters in Wisconsin the trend is moving in the right direction.
We knew things were going to improve as we headed west. And last week, we won Utah with 78% of the vote. We won Idaho with 79% of the vote. And we won Democrats abroad with 67% of the vote. We are making significant inroads in Secretary Clinton's lead, and we have, with your support coming here in Wisconsin, we have a path toward victory.
And more information now. Bernie Sanders may have even more reason to smile now that we understand that he has won in the state of Hawaii in the presidential preference vote there. With 70% of the vote, we'll continue to monitor the details coming from Hawaii. But again, it seems that Bernie Sanders has won there.
CNN projects that Bernie Sanders will win the Wisconsin Democratic presidential primary, beating Hillary Clinton. A big, big win for Bernie Sanders. He won 5 of the last 6 states, now another state. He's got a lot of momentum going forward right now. A big win for Bernie Sanders.
Breaking news, CNN can now project that Bernie Sanders has won the Wyoming Democratic caucuses. Right now, Bernie Sanders is speaking at a rally in Long Island City, New York. Let's listen in to see if there's any reaction to this.
People in the industrialized world. You know, 100 years ago, if you remember history, workers used to march down the streets in demonstrations, and they held up these huge banners. And the banner said, "We want the 40-hour week." Well, you know what? We still have not gotten the 40-hour week.
Well, we did just get
What?
We just won Wyoming.
All right, news bulletin. We just won Wyoming.
We do have a projection, a win for Bernie Sanders. CNN projects Bernie Sanders is the winner of the Rhode Island Democratic presidential primary. That's his first win of the night.
Fox News is now ready to project that Bernie Sanders has won the state of Indiana this evening, beating Hillary Clinton in a tight race there in the Democratic presidential primary. This is an upset victory against the frontrunner that keeps this race alive on the Democratic side down the home stretch. Hillary Clinton, had led Sanders in pre-election polls, but it appears that not enough of her supporters actually turned out to vote for her today.
Major projection right now. Bernie Sanders is the winner in the West Virginia Democratic presidential primary. Senator Sanders is the winner. The polls closed in West Virginia nearly 2 hours ago, but he is now the winner. Bernie Sanders is the winner in the West Virginia Democratic presidential primary.
Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders facing off in 2 contests overnight, with Sanders the winner in Oregon.
Other news breaking this morning, Bernie Sanders has officially announced his bid for the 2020 presidential race. The Vermont senator made the announcement in an interview with Vermont Public Radio Tuesday morning. Now, if you remember, Sanders was defeated last election in a questionable run against Hillary Clinton in 2016. He enters the race as a frontrunner in the Democratic Party. Now, including Sanders, at least 10 major Democrats have either announced their candidacy or formed exploratory committees for it.
Now to the latest on the 2020 presidential race. Pete Buttigieg keeps a slight lead in the Iowa caucuses. That's with 100% of precincts reporting. The Iowa Democratic Party announced the results Thursday night, days after the chaos of Monday's caucuses. The former South Bend, Indiana mayor leads Senator Bernie Sanders by 1/10 of 1 percentage point. Senator Elizabeth Warren, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Senator Amy Klobuchar
trail behind Buttigieg and Sanders. Mayor Pete Buttigieg had said from the night of the caucuses his campaign was headed to New Hampshire victorious, but Senator Bernie Sanders also saying outright he won the state, thanking the voters there for a very strong victory. Even so, both candidates expressing frustration with the delayed results.
It has been an extraordinary week, and we are absolutely electrified.
I got 6,000 more votes. And from where I come, when you get 6,000 more votes, that's generally regarded to be the winner. What happened in Iowa was a disaster. It was a disaster for the Iowa Democratic Party.
Meanwhile, the Democratic National Committee chair has called for a recanvass of all results in Iowa as the state's Democratic Party continued to struggle to verify the caucus data.
Not risk 4 more years of this presidency.
We are listening to Mayor Pete Buttigieg talk about his second place finish. It looks like here in New Hampshire, NBC News can now project that Bernie Sanders is going to win the New Hampshire primary. He's going to get 7 of the 24 delegates awarded in this race. It's a much narrower margin than when he won here back in 2016 over Hillary Clinton. That was the biggest margin in history of the Democratic primary here in New Hampshire. This most likely to be the most narrow right now, with 86% reporting. Bernie Sanders has 26% of the vote. Pete Buttigieg has 24%, just 5,000 or so votes separating them. Mark Murray, Amy Klobuchar at 20% with 49,000 votes. She's 10,000, 11,000 votes short of Pete Buttigieg. So Bernie Sanders winning as we expected, perhaps not by as much as they would have liked to.
We have been listening to Vice President Joe Biden speaking in Nevada, and we are projecting that Bernie Sanders, NBC News projects Bernie Sanders, the winner in Nevada. Brand new breaking news numbers coming right out of Nevada. Our special team is here, and I want to go directly to Steve Kornacki at the big board. Walk us through what this means. A projected winner here, according to NBC News, Bernie Sanders takes Nevada.
Welcome back. We are now projecting that Bernie Sanders will win his home state of Vermont. We knew that was going to happen, but wanted to wait for the raw data to confirm it. Now, Bernie Sanders winning in Vermont. That's where his headquarters is, in Essex Junction, and we'll be hearing from him, I'm sure, a little bit later tonight. Meantime, Joe Biden, the big winner in Virginia, and we're awaiting the next poll closing in about 10 minutes from now. North Carolina, the biggest one to watch.
Yeah, you got to win your own home state. And that is what Bernie Sanders is in the process of doing. It looks like in Vermont.
Speak of the state we were just talking about. In Colorado, NBC News is projecting that when all, at a date certain, when all of the votes are counted, Bernie Sanders will finish first. Please note Michael Bloomberg also in the frame there.
Fascinating.
24%.
We actually have some breaking news, everybody, out of California. I want to get right to MSNBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki for those results, as we've been awaiting these results now for what, 10 days or so at this point?
March 3rd, Super Tuesday. Then we went and we had March 10th. But guess what? We've got a call here from the state of California. I don't know why the check mark didn't pop up. It should have. I'll put it there. Bernie Sanders, NBC News now declares the winner of California's primary. You see.
NBC News projects Bernie Sanders is the winner of the North Dakota caucus with 72% of the vote in. Sanders has 53% to Joe Biden's 40%. This is Sanders' first win in yesterday's elections. He's been awarded 8 of North Dakota's 14 delegates, Joe Biden 6. Biden now leads Sanders by 148 in the total delegate count.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From